Hi, it's Tuesday, the 23rd, I guess. Uh, I'll do a quick review here. I don't know. I read Richard Laymon's Allhallows Eve. I started it yesterday morning, and I finished it around, man, a little bit before 8 uh, earlier this evening. So, about a day and a half. It's only 246 pages. The last Layman I read was Steak, I think. Pretty sure it was a steak. I read some horrible sci-fi mystery novel someone gave me as a gift for Christmas, and I felt bad. Like I was all, they gave it to me. I got to read it. Started it, like every book started with good intentions and like high hopes. Quickly, just realized I was like, this is really boring, and it's a mystery, and it didn't even like it was a mystery. It didn't even have to be set in. It was on a spaceship. The book's called Death Star Voyage from like 1969. I was under the impression that was like a great time for sci-fi, and it could have been on a boat, on Earth, it could have been any time, anywhere. Didn't matter that it was sci-fi. So I need to cleanse the old brain palette of that terrible book. So let me try this layman. So I'll read you the back. Nothing unusual ever happens in Ashburg until a local family are horribly mutilated and left to die in their own home. Since that night, the old Sherwood house has stood dark and abandoned, a constant reminder of the horrific killings. But when mysterious invitations begin to arrive announcing the party to be held there, nobody thinks it's a joke. After all, on All Hallows Eve, everyone wants to party in a house of death. So this is a really weird one. Like, I'm a huge Layman fan. I've only read one book of his that I didn't like so far, and that was, I think, The Lake, which was completed after he had passed away. But I've read other books from him that were like or finished after he died, and they were pretty good. I thought that's what this was, but no. It says first published in 1986, and then it says copyright 1985, and then this is a 1994 edition. So this is like in his. I'm not gonna say his prime. I think he got better in like the 90s, but it's definitely just it's crazy. It's a just more of a slasher, killer police procedural, procedural. But there's so many characters, and I swear now that after reading it, I was this is like not edited. This is just like chopped up. It got to one point where I was okay, how did they get here? They talked about these two characters talked about getting to a place, and then they get there, but I was like, how did they get here? Like they didn't. There's something missing. Uh, there's a main character who I thought was the main character. Sam, he's a police officer. Towards the end of the book, I was like, where's Sam? He's just gone. But he comes back at the very end, like in the last 10 pages. And I was like, well, how did he get? Yeah, so this is seems to be like a heavily edited version. And it's not for the gore or violence or sex or rape. You get a lot of that in the very end. And just a lot of the usual perverted layman teenage characters just looking at girls and just thinking the nastiest thoughts. It's to me it's just funny at this point because I've read so many of his books and this comes up again and again, and I was like, man, this kid's a little wacko. And then there's another kid, Eric. He's also a main character, but he's a little pervert. But then I was like, you're supposed to feel bad for him, but he's a little, but then I was like, is he bad? And then there's like these two other characters, Nate and Bill, who I thought, okay, these are they're not the main bad guy, but they're bad. But then towards the end, I was like, well, maybe they're not so bad. They are bad though. Uh, Even Sam has some bad thoughts that I didn't like. And then the killer, you get like a page of him, like midway through, and then he doesn't come back. Well, he does the killings, and then for a while I was like, is this supernatural? It's not supernatural. And then he comes back at the end, and there's a huge massacre at the end. Yeah, it was. Hey, I read it in like less than a day and a half, so that's something to be said for Allhallows Eve. It's not as good as The Stake or Night in the Lonesome October or Among the Missing, One Rainy Night, The Quake, but it was still pretty good. Like I could see this movie just a dumb, great, really good, slasher movie, horror movie, whatever, and it's just so different. It's a lot of this is one of his hornier books I've read, and his books are usually pretty horny. Someone said in Laymon, a review said in a Richard Laymon novel, they're either doing it, about to do it, or they're thinking about doing it, and it's a pretty apt description. And there's so many characters in this. I had trouble keeping track of them. Like Eric's mom, Cynthia, you know, she starts out like a major character, or I thought a major character, and then halfway through the book, she's just gone. There's another character named, I think his name's Elmer, and he's like a sick, ugly, dumpy pervert, and he gets a bunch of chicks. And they say because he has a big schlong. I was like, man, Layman's just so weird sometimes. But I'm glad I read it. It was just fun. Oh yeah, this is what, like, when I buy all these books, and sometimes I was like, why did I buy that? It's so I can find a gem like this, even though I have a lot of nitpicks with this, but I'm gonna blame the editing. I can never blame Laymon for any faults. He always does good in my eyes. And there's still a lot of Laymon I haven't read because I've just been holding on to them since he's not here anymore. I still have Flesh, Savage. Here's one called Alarms, Fiends. I don't even know if I have Fiends. And a couple more that I haven't read. I think he has one called Cuts. And yeah, I think I have all of his. No, not all of them, but it's 246 pages. I would say definitely read it. I'd give it a 4. Just it's so wild. There's something always happening. Even the teachers are like perverts, except there's one good person, Mrs. Bennett, Miss Bennett. She's good, but then yeah, there's so much I don't want to just go into the weeds about it. There's like teachers hanging out with kids, and I was like, I wouldn't know who would do that, but they would do that in a Laymon book. But yeah, I just wanted to say a few words about Allhallows Eve. I don't know how much it is, but thanks to my buddy James, Video Massacre, he sent this to me. Sent it at the right time, just when I needed it. Now it's just like reinvigorated me. I grabbed another old 80s paperback off the shelf, and I just started it, and we'll see how that goes. I wanted to go with something I was gonna grab The Mailman by, oh my god, what's his name? Can't remember his name, but he's a dependable writer. But I was like, no, if I read all the good books now, what am I going to be left with? Just a bunch of trash. But yeah, This just took over. This is what I want when I read. Like, I still think about the time when I was reading Night and Alone in October, and I would just spend hours just laying in bed reading it, and it was such a good time for me. That's what I enjoy doing. But if you just want to read a good, quick, nasty, weird horror novel, the best bet is Allhallows Eve.